Are you a woman in the corporate world striving to break barriers, challenge unconscious bias, and lead the way for women in leadership roles globally? If so, this is the podcast for you. Introducing Leading Ladies Who Lunch. The lunch hour is usually the time when colleagues get together for real, honest conversations about work, life, and everything in between. In each episode of Leading Ladies Who Lunch, we'll delve into insightful discussions and share actionable strategies to help you navigate corporate life. Co-hosted by me, Cicy George, a leadership development architect and inspirational speaker. I'm thrilled to share my experience and expertise on leadership, mentorship, and organizational intelligence to help you own your career.
And me, Rachel Lowndes, CEO and founder, imposter syndrome expert, and mindset coach at Rachel Lowndes Coaching and Consulting. Passionate about helping women conquer imposter syndrome and unleash their inner confidence to get the recognition and promotions they deserve.
Jam-packed with insightful conversations, expert advice, and inspiring stories from a diverse group, we'll explore how to overcome obstacles, shatter those glass ceilings, and build unshakable mindsets to unlock your true potential. So whether you're sipping a coffee or enjoying a meal at your desk, tune in for a no-host bar lunchtime chat. Episodes will be dropped every 2 weeks. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
Leading Ladies Who Lunch, empowering women, one conversation at a time.
Welcome. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Leading Ladies Who Lunch podcast. Rachel, it's so great to see you. I always love the time that we have just to catch up with one another.
It's great to be here. See, how's it harpooning with you?
Harpooning really is a way to get started with this one.
Well, I did notice that you put in the script notes today for me to insert a witty comment here. So I'd hate to let you down, although it's not that witty, is it? But I suppose that's part of my brand, a little bit cheeky. And I kind of do call it how I see it too, which leads us nicely into the topic of today's conversation, personal branding and self-promotion. It's something I work on a lot for myself and with my clients, actually.
You're right. Yeah. You know what? I think you are our resident expert on this subject. And I was thinking the other day about branding and self-promotion and just reflecting on, just what a long way even I've come in that regard. I didn't even really hear or use those terms earlier in my career. I never actually heard anyone use the term at that time when I was, first started working. And in fact, recently I had a friend who she messaged me on LinkedIn. And it was so sweet the way that, that this person recognized and appreciated how I've been working on my personal branding. And it just felt really good to be seen. And, when it comes to self-promotion, well, I think there's a lot of struggle I've had in the past with that, finding my voice, how to do it, but still be authentic to who I am. Am I alone on this one, or did you have any challenges, with that yourself?
Oh, yeah, I've definitely had a lot of challenges about finding my voice and certainly putting myself out in spaces like LinkedIn. And that's something very common to a lot of people. It's certainly something I hear a lot with the women that I talk to in my work and, generally across the board. If you only have to look at LinkedIn to see like how many content creators are talking about how to get noticed on LinkedIn, right? So,
Right.
it's being really widely discussed at the moment in today's market, and finding ways to build your reputation, your brand, and to confidently talk about yourself and your achievements is essential in order to elevate your career opportunities.
Exactly. That's why we're spending this time to talk about, how to innovate yourself through your personal branding and self-promotion. And that goes beyond a 9 to 5 job. You think about, you wake up in the morning, you clock in at maybe 8 or 8:30, 9 o'clock, you go until about 5:30 or so. And then for some people, they think everything stops and it's back to their regular life. But I think when you're looking at branding yourself and promoting yourself, you really have to go beyond those hours. So let's start off by really laying out what personal branding and self-promotion means. I think, for me, my brand is a story that I tell people
Mm,
about who I am, what I do, and the why behind it. So when I meet people and tell them about what I do, I talk about leadership development and the work that I do in that regard. But it's more about how passionate I am about developing, but also elevating other people.
mm,
And, you know, my mantra is I never want anyone to walk away from an interaction or conversation with me not feeling inspired, or at the very least, just feeling really good about themselves.
yeah.
So, because that is my focus,
Hmm.
I'm very conscious of how I treat people. If I say I'll do something, I'm going to do it.
Mm,
And I'm always intentional in every conversation that I'm coming from a place of positivity and genuine caring for the other person. And when I think about self-promotion, well, self-promotion is just sharing with someone about my accomplishments and the results that I've had that support my brand.
yeah.
I strive to hard to really, really hard to do that in a sincere and authentic way. And I want to make sure that I'm doing that in such a way that doesn't also underplay the significance of those accomplishments.
Mm,
And I really struggled with this one. I mean, talking about myself was not something I was ever good at. I'm not saying I'm perfect or that I'm great, but it is something I'm continuously working on.
mm,
And
hmm.
just like that, I mean, similar to me, I'm sure, there are other people who shy away from doing that because you don't want to get labeled as or come off as, arrogant or conceited or high-headed. And, as I said, I've gotten better with this over the last couple of years as I really tried to, hone my brand. I'm happy that I'm in a place where I can own my accomplishments.
Yeah.
And doing that goes beyond the time that I put in for my quote unquote day job, right? I have to really think about doing this sort of on an ongoing basis. It doesn't really stop when I
Mm,
wake up at 6 a.m. or when I go to sleep at 11 o'clock. It
yeah.
really goes beyond that, right? I'm not saying it's a 24-hour thing, but Rachel, what about you? What are your thoughts about branding and how to self-promote?
Yeah, well, personal branding and your reputation is what people say about you when you're not in the room, right? So, as you say, Cici, it's about who you are, what you stand for, what you want to be known for, and how you go about showing that. And it covers everything from what you choose to do inside and outside of the workplace, down to how you speak, how you dress, how you act. It's like
Right.
it's all encompassing. And
Mhm.
self-promotion, on the other hand, is how you talk about yourself, your results, and what you do in a way that backs up what your personal brand is.
Right.
Because let's face it, if you don't, then no one will know who and what you are and what you can bring to the table. Right.
Right.
So now this is something I didn't think about in my early careers. I didn't work on my reputation. I didn't work on communicating my value, my knowledge, my goals, or my desires. And this meant that my career never really took off. In fact, I did a lot of things that probably damaged my reputation. Now I
Mm,
think about it.
right.
Um, and so I wasn't really consciously self-aware of that. And that's something I would really recommend people do, start thinking about what their behaviors are and how that's kind of contributing to their reputation and their personal brand. Now,
Sure.
this happened to me because number one, no one told me I needed to do that. So I
Right.
actually just wasn't informed. And number two, I didn't really associate myself with someone who had a career as such in front of me. So I was in the mindset of having a job instead of a career. And I also
Mhm.
struggled to see myself as someone who was smart enough to be considered as one of the main players in the company. So my belief system and my fears about being seen really sabotaged me and my potential. I just didn't talk about my accomplishments. I brushed off any sort of achievement and I didn't work on my reputation or building a career ladder for myself. I just didn't think it was possible for me. So no wonder my career was floundering and no one noticed me, right? I'm kind of to blame here. Um, and I used to feel so jealous of people who received recognition and accolades at work. I thought, it's just easy for you. But, it was my fault. I wasn't excelling. I blamed everyone else for my lack of success instead of taking responsibility for my part.
Right.
Now, I've since learned that this is really important and essential part of anyone's career success. And it's why I focus on this a lot with my clients at the moment. And I'm really like what you said about like, oh, bragging, arrogance, all that kind of thing. It's like it's not arrogant. It's you're actually talking about your successes. It's what you have done. So we need to kind of
Right.
reframe that thought process. So what are your thoughts on this topic, Cici?
I am right there with you, Rachel. No one told me that this is something I needed to work on. And just like you, I think, this might be the reason why I was never that person to get, promoted or fast-tracked in any
Mm,
company that I worked for. I was also of the mindset that if I talk about myself, people will think I'm full of myself and
yeah,
arrogant.
common,
And
common
yeah,
thing.
that's just not
Yeah.
who I am, though. So I was really worried about that outward perception of who I was.
Mm.
I've now realized that we need to have a personal brand because that is how others associate and remember us.
Mm.
So for example, if there was, I don't know, a job opening somewhere in marketing, right?
Yeah.
And you just spoke to someone about all this great marketing work that you've done to that
Mm.
person,
Mm.
they're going to remember you.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to remember you if you haven't opened up your mouth and spoken up.
No.
And I also feel like,
Give them something to work with.
right, give me something to work with, but people
Yeah.
are not going to know that unless you open your mouth and you tell them, right? They
Yeah.
have no idea what to associate you with.
Yeah.
And then I also feel like having a personal brand, I don't want to get too like sentimental here, but it also has helped me to focus on my strengths and my passion and
Mm.
giving that a clear identity,
Mm.
which also then is helping with my career goals. So
Yeah.
once I've honed in on what I think my personal brand is, I'm really aligned to everything, all the work and effort goes into supporting that. I
Mm.
actually, I recently read somewhere that everyone has a story to tell. And that struck me. And part of that is highlighting what you've done, what fuels you, and where you're going with that. So
Yeah.
self-promotion is a way for you to own your accomplishments and share that with others because just as you said, if you don't share with others, they're not going to know. People aren't mind readers here.
No.
And what did we learn, Rachel? It's not bragging if it's based on
Based on
facts.
facts.
Not that from that Google webinar that we both connected on.
Yeah.
I also think it's a really great way for you to practice giving your elevator pitch, which supports your personal branding. And this also helps when you're just networking or, being introduced to executives within your company. I think the why here is like super strong all the way around.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And, people are not going to know what you've done unless you tell them. You cannot expect the results to speak for themselves. I hear
Hmm.
so many of my clients saying this. We've really got to shift this belief that if we just work hard and keep our heads down, then our managers and leaders will see what we've done and reward us. Like it just doesn't
Right.
work like that.
No, it doesn't.
And that's why so many women I work with talk about how they don't feel recognized and valued at work. And it's one of the main reasons they come to me so we can work on changing that. In fact, I would say
Mhm.
this is like probably the number one reason as to why so many women feel unhappy at work and maybe people in general. And,
Mm.
the answer isn't always to leave your job either, right? That's just geography at the end of
Right.
the day. Like what we really need to happen for you is to start understanding who you are as a person and an employee, what you bring, what makes you unique, your values, your
Yep.
personal vision and mission, and talking about what you have done isn't bragging because it's career advancement. So work on your unique selling proposition, refine your values, what you are passionate about, and how what you do has an effect, like the results and changes that have occurred because of something that you have done. I've got a whole program on this, by the way.
Yes, for our listeners, you can check out Rachel's website to get more information on this suite of programs she offers.
Oh, thanks, Cici. I love a good plug. For anyone interested, my website is rachellowndes.com.au, and you can book in for a free, no obligation 30-minute consultation to find out more. Back to you, Cici.
Love it. She's fabulous. So I think once you have your brand laid out in a way that you can articulate the story, then it's really time to get to work here.
Mm-hmm.
I would say first is social media. I think you have to make a concerted effort to work on the story that your social media channels all tell, from
Yeah.
Instagram to LinkedIn and Twitter and what have you. It should all feel homogenous and tell one story. And I'm not on Twitter, but this is something I'm really actively trying to work on my LinkedIn page and Instagram. And, just trying to post when I've done something that I want others to associate my brand with. So,
Yeah.
for example, I told you recently I delivered my first public keynote speech
Yes.
to an audience of over 300 people, 300
Woohoo!
healthcare executives. Woo! I know it was a little crazy, but it was amazing. I literally felt like Superwoman right after. So I
So,
posted about it. Normal, no, under normal circumstances, maybe 10 years ago, I wouldn't have told anyone about it. But
wow.
I posted about it. I had my husband there. He did a whole Instagram story and reel about it. I
Hey,
want others to see what I'm doing, right?
yeah.
I want you all to know that I'm doing this so I can work with everyone.
Yeah.
So I try to post when I've done something interesting or I'm working on a new project. When I see an interesting article or leadership quotes or
Hmm.
sayings, I'm really trying to amp up my leadership presence online.
There's so many ways to do that as well.
There is, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't end there though. I think you have to also think about other channels. So I've joined some affiliate groups on LinkedIn and other social media channels where I can connect with others who have common interests like on me.
Hmm.
And I'm also part of a few. I'm part of, since mentoring is such a big part of my life and especially was a big part of my past,
Mm.
I'm on the Young Professionals Advisory Board for a nonprofit organization called Mentor New York, all about mentoring and providing mentoring services to those in New York City. Their
Amazing.
CEO, so this is really interesting. Their CEO and I met at a networking breakfast almost 4 years ago to the day. We met once. I was enthralled by her. I thought I can one day become just like her. We
Yeah.
actually entered into a mentoring relationship, fully virtual. I met her once at a breakfast. I connected, and
Yeah.
we've been meeting for 3 years.
Mm.
I finally met her in person a year and a half ago. How
Oh,
crazy.
that's crazy. Love that.
So so this is all part of the story here. So
Mm.
I think, joining affiliate groups is one thing. And I also think, we've spent so much time during COVID in the last couple of years being on our own and siloed. People are dying to get back to having in-person connection.
Oh, yeah,
So if you
totally
can
agree.
attend networking events, right? You
Hmm.
know, conferences, if you
Yeah.
can't attend in person, join online. But those are opportunities for you to practice and also share your brand with others. So if I
Hmm.
have an opportunity or a chance to attend a virtual or in-person event or conference, I always make sure you got to have your business card up to date. I always have that, QR code going to my business card up to date right away. And I
Yeah.
also take a moment to scan the attendees of who's going to be at that event.
Yes.
So I was at a conference about a year ago, and I just took a look at the all the attendees who were coming. I pointed out to like five or six I knew I wanted to connect with because of
Hmm.
what they did, where
Right.
they were. And I made sure. So it sort of gave me a game plan going into that conference that
Yeah, you had a
here's who I want to
strategy.
meet.
Yeah.
A strategy. People think that you don't need a strategy for networking.
Oh, you.
Wrong.
Yeah.
Nope. You gotta have a strategy, even
100%.
for networking.
Yeah.
I hear that all the time. Oh, I can just show up. No,
No.
you need to have a goal in mind.
Yeah.
There are so many ways to share your brand. Rachel, what strategies have you found that really work for you?
Well, I mean, I'll reiterate everything that you've said here, really hone in on finding a way to talk about your achievement that doesn't feel icky at first and get networking. Like networking's super important. Loving the fact that you're kind of, promoting that get out there in the wild, as I like to call it. Like I feel like I'm good in the wild. So I'm like really
Uh,
focusing on getting out there. I'm much better talking in person than I am kind of trying to be on social media. So yeah, get out in the wild, network, know your unique selling proposition so that you can talk about yourself in a way that positions you as the person and the option, and the person that people want to talk about in the marketing game, like in the, in the market. It's such a game changer. And just by
Right.
doing this, you will open doors. And in doing so, you're going to turn the tables in your favor, and you're going to have, your colleagues watching you get the accolades, the opportunities, and the recognition that you also once desired.
Absolutely. It's all about that USP, baby. Well, always a great time with you, Rachel. But let's take a few moments to recap some takeaways for our listeners. I'll say the first would be to get clear on who you are and what your brand is. If it takes you longer than 30 seconds to articulate, then you really have to reassess.
Mm-hmm.
Second, focus on your external storytelling or the story you share on social media and at in-person events. The stories should all feel connected. That also goes for the nonverbals. And by
Mm-hmm.
that, I mean your behavior and how you treat people. And third, networking, it's how you will get your brand out there. And this often takes place after hours. So remember to plan ahead with your time to make it there, but also strategize on who you're going to connect with and how.
Yeah, yeah. Storytelling is a really powerful tool. And the more you do it, the easier it's going to get, I promise. And 100% agree with the networking is also something you need to get doing more of. So get out in the wild and show who you are.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Leading Ladies Who Lunch podcast. If you like this episode, we would be so grateful if you could share it with your friends and tag us on social media at Leading Ladies Who Lunch. Your reviews of this podcast mean so much to us. We'd love it if you could rate it and subscribe to the show.
Remember, you can find us and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcast platforms. Subscribe to stay up to date with the latest episodes and follow us on Instagram, Leading Ladies Who Lunch.
Tune in 2 weeks where we will be talking all about female bosses, friend or foe.
Oh, yeah. Until then, stay sassy. Thank you for joining us on the empowering journey at the Leading Ladies Who Lunch podcast. We hope you've enjoyed our insightful discussions, actionable strategies, and inspiring stories that we break down during each episode. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to Leading Ladies Who Lunch on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And remember, the conversations you've heard on this podcast are just the beginning of your journey. Let your voice be heard, inspire change, and continue breaking barriers as you lead with authenticity, resilience, and unwavering determination.
Until next time, keep embracing your leadership potential, challenging the norms, and shaping a better world for women in the workplace. Leading Ladies Who Lunch, empowering women, changing lives.